Aloha and welcome back. So we've watched a couple of Zohran talking himself, a couple interviews of Zohran talking himself, and then a couple, or then liberal Dim Shady, Kyle Kalinske, center right, going over Zohran, and now we will watch a left wing communist talking about Zohran.
Hey, welcome to Socialism for All. I'm an anti-revisionist Marxist-Leninist who's spent thousands of hours of my life studying political economy and the history of the international communist movement, and now I run a YouTube channel where I share many famous communist works as audiobooks with commentary and discussion.
And so, as always, the link to this video will be below, so you can go check out his channel. His beliefs, his views are going to be more closely like mine on Zohran and most things. I'm very far left. I even call myself a communist to most people. So here we go.
In this video, we're going to talk about the Democratic nominee for New York City Mayor, Zohran Mamdani. It's late June 2025, and recently, a DSA-aligned junior New York State legislator named Zohran Mamdani won the Democratic Party primary for New York City Mayor against Andrew Cuomo and other candidates, and a lot of people have asked me for my thoughts. Before I get into that, I want to say that Mamdani has been in the media constantly, whether it's the mainstream capitalist media that is freaking out because he calls himself a democratic socialist in a stronghold of capitalism, New York City, and has also spoken against the Gaza genocide, again from a stronghold of Zionism, New York City, or whether it's the more left-leaning, mostly online, social democratic hype machine, freaking out about him also, but in a more positive way, and I would expect both sides to keep doing this basically from now to the election. And
I agree, he's pretty good at getting on TV, getting publicity. When the Democratic Party finally kicks him out, I hope he comes to the Green Party and brings the publicity over here.
Probably after the election if he's elected also. So what do I as a communist think about this? So the very short version is, if you're a New York voter and you want to vote for Mamdani, feel free. I'm definitely not trying to stop you. I don't think he's any worse than any of the other candidates, nor do I think that there's any particular advantage as such to refusing to vote for him. In other words, I'm not trying to talk you out of it. But if you're ready to hear it, I would like to share with you a communist perspective, specifically my own personal opinion on the situation, which hopefully will get you thinking a bit more broadly than the frantic despair and short-term desperation which tends to characterize the motivations of U.S. Social Democrats. Let's start with Mamdani's campaign and presentation. He's a young, dynamic politician of Indian descent who gives good speeches and references topics that a lot of working-class people care about. The basic affordability of groceries and rent, criminal justice problems like the Gestapo-style ICE raids and New York City police brutality and racial profiling, and so on. And to be clear, these are problems that need to be solved. You're right for caring about them, and Mamdani is coming in with a program that comes across well on social media. In many ways, he is reminiscent of AOC, but is coming in with much better articulated politics from the start.
Like comparing her to AOC, like hopefully he backs up his rhetoric where she doesn't back her rhetoric up, and has even changed her rhetoric quite a bit since she started running her first campaign.
His political track record, there isn't much there. He is 31 years old and has been in elected office just a few years, so we don't have a lot to go on. If you look online, you can see a list of bills that he has been involved with, which put together with the campaign platform gives you some idea of where he's coming from, but again, not a very long established track record. And I'd like to remind people, politicians lie. I know it's hard to hear, but politicians lie. Joe Biden, for example, still had the public option on his website in the 2020 campaign and then literally never mentioned it once. So, not being mind readers, we just have to acknowledge that while he can say certain things, we don't know whether he has any intention at all of actually following through on them.
Right, and that's the problem with Democrats, is they do have good rhetoric, they talk a mean game, a good game, but then they don't follow through. Hopefully Zohran will follow through. But I think if he does try to follow through, the Democrats will fight him. They're going to fight him in this race here. So he's probably going to win because he's under the Democratic label here in New York, or there in New York, whatever. But I just think that, yeah, we'll see if he's going to do what he says he's going to do. I hope he does, but we'll see if he's more rhetoric like Democrats or if he's more about business like the socialist part of his thing, democratic socialist.
And then, of course, even if he does have the intention of following through, there's the question of how much can he accomplish in the system, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. And before his career as an elected politician...
How much can he accomplish being a Democrat? Because the Democrats will fight you and spend money against you. Like if you're with the Green Party, they can still fight you, but like you're voted in as a Green Party person. They know why you're there, so it's a little bit different. But the Democrats, they really don't care why you're there, if you're a Democrat or not. They're gonna fight. Like so, once they fight him, I really hope he comes to the Green Party.
He worked in housing justice, helping people to fight foreclosures and evictions. So that is, better than being a real estate developer, for example, in terms of some consistency with a DSA type agenda. And about his affiliation with DSA, I want to note we've talked about DSA a fair amount on this channel. I personally have been a dues-paying DSA member on and off since 2016. And to be honest, the first meeting that I went to that winter, 2016-2017, was way too liberal for me, and I backed off of that in favor of other work. I've since assisted in a support role with certain non-electoral local campaigns that I thought were worthwhile, and I've recommended DSA.
I've talked about DSA on this channel a few times. Our local Hawaiian DSA is very good. And I've heard that across the nation that DSAs can be very good or can just be Democratic funnels for the Democratic Party. So they get mixed reviews across the nation from what I've heard.
Of other work. I've since assisted in a support role with certain non-electoral local campaigns that I thought were worthwhile, and I've recommended DSA here on the channel for first-time comrades just getting involved with real-world organizing as a relatively safe way to get your feet wet and get...
I would recommend the Green Party from what I've seen. I think the Green Party has a more national stand, and they are a left-wing party. They're a bottom-up party. And the whole thing is I think we should get all these left-wing parties to coalesce. We need to build a coalition across every party. We need to stop making all these smaller parties with these one-item things or one-look things, because it's just taking from the bigger picture. We need to build a party that can get votes, that can beat the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. We can pull from the Democrats and even probably some from the Republicans once we get a little bit going. But yeah, he said DSA, and DSA is decent around, but I would say go to the Green Party and from there, then start talking to all the other parties and try to build a coalition.
Get a sense of what being involved with a political group is like, to get familiar with your local activist culture, and to meet comrades who might also share further left inclinations and who might be interested in future communist collaborations, be they study groups or what have you. There are also some explicitly Marxist and Marxist-Leninist caucuses within DSA, so there are opportunities, especially for junior communists, to get more familiarity before joining something that is more specialized, which can be a really bad experience and very controlling sometimes if it's the wrong group, which is not something I want to be responsible for recommending here on the channel. But again, I leave that up to the individual listener where you are going to take this.
Right, like a true left wing group should not be trying to control the members. It should be having the members control it. There should really be no top figurehead or whatever. Like you have to run a presidential candidate and stuff, and that might look like the figurehead or the top person. But especially with with the Green Party, we do like local boards and chairs and all that different stuff, and we do like a lot of local politics that are real small, ground up politics, and then those are the real leaders, and we build up from there.
Always, I've recommended to apply what you learn in your Marxist-Leninist studies whenever a vote comes up or a decision of any kind within the groups that you're involved with, and in particular to try to fight right opportunist errors, which in DSA tends to manifest as tailing the imperialist, 1% controlled, genocidal Democratic Party. I believe it's a fundamental task of the US left, along with rebuilding the labor movement, and that piece is critical, to break with the Democratic Party and form our own class-independent workers' party. So,
again, the Green Party, it's already built, it's already there, it's already on most states, and we petition to get on the states that the Democrats fight us and get us off. The Democrats are the ones that take us to court and get us kicked off of state ballots, not the Republicans. The Democrats are the ones that don't like democracy. But so yeah, all this building new things, it takes a long time. The Green Party, again, I've said this a few times on my channel. One of the first things they said at the first meeting that I went to is that they want a youth movement to come in and take over the party. They want that. They want this Bernie Sanders movement. They want this Zohran movement. They want all these people to come in, and these working class people to come in and be, if you're communist, socialist, if you're populist, left wing, all that stuff. Like if you're liberal, I don't know if you really want to be in this type of party, but everybody should want to be in a people first party. But liberals, you're still capitalists. You worry about money more than people. We worry about people more than money. So again, really just go fill your local Green Party. It already has a bit of an established thing for everybody, and it's not establishment, it's just you got to have paperwork done, you got to have certain things done to be on the ballot. It's already there. That's the one people party that's there across the nation that people can fill, and you can come in with DSA, you can come in with PSL, you can come in with any of the other things that he was saying, any of the other groups. And we want those groups to come in and be part of the Green Party and strengthen the Green Party and add their name to the Green Party.
Obviously, Mamdani is running as a Democrat, and that's exactly the kind of thing I want to see people fighting against. So That's something off the bat I disagree with about his approach and the sort of left liberal orientation that he represents. Just to get that out in the open, I can already hear people.
I also disagree with that approach. The Democratic Party is not where it's at. Not for the left, not for anyone who's people first. If you're business first, if you're money first, if you're worried about that, if you're capitalist, then yeah, maybe the Democrats are where you want to be.
Saying, but you have to run as a Democrat or you won't win. But winning isn't that important because ultimately, I'm not sure we're going to change that much through the cap.
Here I disagree with him a little bit. I would like to win. I think it is important. I think that if the Green Party can get some wins, if real left-wing people can get some wins, we can get votes on Medicare. And then once we get votes on Medicare, then the people can see who to vote out. If the people really want Medicare for all, we'll start voting people out. We can get votes on a higher minimum wage, on UBI, on universal college, universal child care, all the stuff, ending food deserts. If we want, say, national or state-run, what do you call it, food stores, grocery stores and things, we can have votes on that if we get left-wing Green Party people in. If we keep it through the Democratic Party, even if you get a kind of left-wing person in, if they stay left, they get kicked out. If they do like AOC, they move to the right and start calling Pelosi Mama Bear. So you go from boycotting her to, loving on her.
Capitalist electoral system, more on that in a minute. And even winning as a Democrat is kind of a loss. They're definitely going to drag you right, and it's going to rehabilitate the credibility of that party and so on, which is something I've seen.
That's another thing. I said they're going to drag you right or kick you out, but you are also going to make the Democrats look a little better. You're going to keep the hopium in the Democratic Party, and you're going to make it harder for the left-wing parties, the populist parties to actually build.
Him speak directly to, making the Democratic Party into the kind of party that people believe in. I'm not sure we really want that, considering that after all, it doesn't have internal party democracy. It is owned by the 1%. And, again,
Yes, Bernie Sanders even said it was a threat to democracy, the Democratic Party.
Cuomo, his primary opponent, Democrat, is probably going to run against him in the general because they don't really vote blue no matter who. That's just something that they say to the left. But again, we need to get away from that party.
Right, vote blue no matter who when it's a right-wing Democrat. If you put in an AOC or a Mamdani, or say I was running as a Democrat and I was in there, they would run against me. They wouldn't say to vote for me. They would say they would run independent against me and say to vote for the safe guy or the guy who's not extreme or whatever.
Not rehabilitate that party. We've had a number of discussions on this topic since the fall of last year in videos such as social rehabilitate that party.
We cannot
probably going to run against him in the general because they don't really vote blue no matter who. That's just something that they say to the left. But again, we need to get away from that party, not rehabilitate that party. We've had a number of discussions on this topic since the fall of last year in videos such as Socialism 101 versus Electoralism. Do communists vote in capitalist elections? Should the U.S. left trust Bernie Sanders? A recent playlist titled Socialists Against Bernie Sanders, which includes videos such as Let's Talk About Fighting Oligarchy Marxistly, and Bernie Sanders and the Lesson of Occupy Wall Street, which go into great detail about this, and 2 additional videos titled A Tale of Two Comments, How to Move the U.S. Left Forward to Socialism, and more on U.S. left parties, in which I discuss my views of the current state of left parties and groups in the USA, as a starting point to help you, the listeners and students of the communist educational materials we're publishing, in choosing where you might start or continue your real-world organizing.
As always, like I said, there's going to be a link to this video in the description. Go ahead and go to his channel and check all that stuff out if you're interested. I watch his videos. I think he's a good communist or a good representation of a communist.
And I'll link those in the video description. So all that said, Mamdani has only won the primary so far. In the general election this fall, he'll be facing the corrupt incumbent mayor and general ass clown Eric Adams, who used to be a Democrat but will be running as an independent. And again, his primary opponent and shitlib darling Andrew Cuomo, among others. And really the broke out all the stops, spent a ton of money trying to defeat Mamdani. They're probably going to do it again in the general, so no matter how excited you may be today that he won the primary, there is a reasonable chance that he won't win the general, in which case our speculations on what a Mamdani mayoral reign would entail would be moot. And also, I'll just say it now, for the Soc Dems, life is gonna have to go on somehow anyway. This is becoming a real problem. When the Republicans get elected, there is this period of performative outrage, some of which is coming from a genuine place, but it's just not really helpful to the movement to do this kind of temper tantrum, despair, you know the package, because basically you have to recognize this is their system. The capitalist government exists to maintain the capitalist system, the capitalist class rule, over the classes it exploits, primarily the proletariat, the working class, people who work for wages and salaries and don't own capital. And I'm not talking about your 401k, which is basically just like a savings account that keeps up with inflation. We're talking about enough capital to get rich on, something historically meaningful. So, sometimes there's a candidate that talks about going back from neoliberalism to the social democracy type period that existed in this country between the 1930s and the late 70s. And there's all kinds of uproar about it, and people get really excited or really freaked out depending on which class you're in. But really, this is too limited of a perspective. First of all,
right. And plus, that was just to keep capitalism alive. That's the whole reason that FDR passed the New Deal. And he told the capitalists, if you don't do this, if you don't pay some taxes for a little while, they're going to uprise and it's going to become communism. The proletariat, the workers are going to take this over. And so from the 30s to the 70s, it was really just to appease the people to keep capitalism going.
That system in the mid-20th century did not work for most people still, and if it were brought back over the objections of the neoliberals, it still would not work for most people today. But again, let's say for a moment that Mamdani wins the general election and becomes New York City mayor. What do I, a communist, think this would mean, as many have asked? So first of all, I think that the issues he's speaking to, as I said before, are important and need to be solved. Working people in this country get a raw deal, and capitalism cannot solve the crises that are emerging. In fact, that it is creating, whether it's climate collapse or you name it. And Mamdani isn't really talking about upending that system. He's talking about putting some more public programs in place from what I've seen. So that is a far cry from what we talk about when we talk about socialism, and a far cry from what is possible if the working class chooses to organize to realize it.
It's organized,
if Mamdani is able to make some progress in solving some of these problems somehow, then great. But one, I honestly doubt that he'll be able to do much within the system as it exists. And number two, I've also looked a lot at the historical role that social democrats, the people who are the would-be reformers of capitalism, or the gradualists who don't want a sudden change from capitalism into socialism but want to
I am not fond of the gradualist.
gradually change it over time, a strategy that has not played out at all in history. Tend to play the role that these people tend to play during times of crisis for capitalism, such as we're experiencing now. And that role is to buy time and credibility for the capitalist system. Like he was talking about, the kind of Democrat you can be proud of being. There is no kind of Democrat you can be proud of being. That party first took the presidency in 1828. This is their system as much as it is anyone's. It is fundamentally a capitalist political party, and we...
Exactly. We can't change them. They don't want to be changed. They are of the system. They are the system. They've been in control for very long. Them and the Republicans go back and forth, and it's just what it is. We need to change who's running our stuff. We need to be the ones in there running our own things, right? The Green Party, we need you to come in. We need you to become members. Then some of you need to run. We need regular people to run. Bus drivers, cab drivers, coaches, teachers, doctors, nurses, regular people, even the smart regular people, but the people that do everyday things, plumbers, bakers, bartenders, everybody. We need y'all to come run. Some of y'all. I mean, not everybody can run, but not everybody wants to run, right? But we need everybody to come in, join, vote, and run.
28, this is their system as much as it is anyone's. It is fundamentally a capitalist political party, and we need to fight against that in our own party, because political parties are basically the concentrated essence of a class perspective. And the kind of class collaborationist perspective of workers trying to organize in an imperialist party is just not going to help you. So this last piece about buying time and credibility for the capitalist system and its parties is harmful, whether Mamdani and his supporters are conscious of that or not. We have discussed this extensively in the Bernie Sanders playlist that I mentioned earlier, in which we delved into historical works from the time of the original rise of fascism in the 1920s and 30s, covering the role that Social Democrats played in aiding fascism both directly and indirectly against revolutionary political options. But the U.S. Ocdems will now say the U.S. Americans don't support a revolution. Well, they should, because I can absolutely promise you that nothing is going to fundamentally change for the better until there is one. But okay, many don't, so why not support a Socdem in the meantime? Like I said, I'm tired of arguing about it. Which is not to say that I'm tired of promoting communism. I'm definitely not. I'm just tired of reading whiny, uninformed social democrat despair-laden freak-out comments. You know the kind. It's just, we need to elect better Democrats, and if we don't, all is lost, it's hopeless, etc. How do you keep your hope up? And, just the spiraling, the unraveling. Get a hold of yourself. I mean, really, this is their system. How much do you expect we can achieve within it? Anyway, if you want to do that, you want to do the freak-out, go right ahead. I don't think it's going to help you or anyone else around you.
Don't freak out, calm down. But get excited. Come join the Green Party. Then call DSA, call all the other parties, and let's build this coalition. Let's make the Green Party the biggest party in the nation. There are more non-voters or independents and non-voters than there are Democrats or Republicans. Let's bring us all together.
I'm sure a lot of people are really tired of it. But anyway, if he gets elected, though, what do we expect? I expect, at a minimum, a lot of disappointment, excuses, and mental gymnastics when things don't work out that well.
Dang.
Because again, capitalism and the governments the capitalists create to maintain and expand it are a system, and you can't view little pieces of it in isolation. Every bit plays its part, and changing a piece of it, even in a relatively important role, like New York City mayor, in the end is counterbalanced against all the rest of it. What generally ends up happening is that the people in those roles, if they're not going into them as communists, as Mamdani is not, with the specific purpose of disrupting the system, showing how inadequate it is for ever meeting workers' needs in a real way, and making reforms
Maybe Mamdani wasn't going as hard as he could on the rhetoric because he wanted to get in. He wanted to get voted in. Maybe he will make sure these things, or really try hard to get, the city stores and stuff. Maybe his stuff through. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm hoping Mamdani will do the things he said and maybe more. But you got to say you got to say it a certain way to be a Democrat, which that's why I'm not a Democrat.
Specifically to enable the class struggle to advance toward revolution, rather than reforms to help capitalism work better, wind up getting dragged into doing capitalism's bidding. Because after all, that is the purpose of the capitalist government, to govern, maintain, and expand capitalism, which is the organized exploitation of labor for profit on a societal scale. So that's what you end up getting out of it, unless again your aim is to disrupt it as a step in a strategy toward actually bringing it down. And that is not what I'm hearing from Mamdani. This is more of the right wing of DSA as far as I've seen. So for more on this, in addition to the above-mentioned videos, which will be linked, I'd also highly recommend our 3-hour audiobook and discussion of Rosa Luxemburg's work, Reform or Revolution, which argued in 1908 that capitalist reforms were already pretty much tapped out by that time and mostly oriented toward hanging onto gains that workers had already made through prior labor struggles, rather than breaking new ground. And also R.P. Dutt's Fascism and Social Revolution, which is a comprehensive communist breakdown of the original rise of fascism, which is a consequence of a delayed socialist revolution. So if it was delayed in 1935, you can bet that in 2025, it's super delayed, which is why all this fascism keeps popping up. It is a symptom of capitalism in decay, with its falling rate of profit and nothing more to contribute to human progress, trying to defend itself against a socialist revolution. Which means
with capitalism, it's always fascism. It's always the elite taking control, how it was spread, how it's maintained. It's always about war, taking from those that look different from you, and still we just kill people that look different from us all over the world. But how do we get America? How do we spread it? How do we? Everything about capitalism and the spread is pretty much murder.
Means the end of its life. But as long as it is allowed to limp along, we are going to be facing absolute horror. In conclusion, you may not want to hear that things
And then again, but at the beginning of its spread, it was absolute horror for most people. Like, I don't understand. Like, even a communist like this guy, he kind of misses that point. They always say, "Oh, capitalism is crumbling. All this is happening because it's late stage capitalism, whatever." The spread of capitalism was terrible. The build of capitalism was terrible for so many people. But we only care about the 1%, and we only talk about the 1%. And like, the Native Americans that were here, they just got genocided. The black people, the slaves that built this country, that was fascism. That is exactly what Hitler was trying to do. He was trying to do what the George Washington and the beginners of our country did. He wanted to make the Jews the black people.
terrible, and they're going to keep getting worse, whether or not Zohran Mamdani gets elected.
But again, it can't get no worse than what it was. It started out super bad, and people have this, like, and even just his rhetoric now, it starts to make it seem like it wasn't as bad before. It was terrible before. It's not only getting better, but it's got a lot better, and for so many more people. Like he said, like, a lot of people were left out from the 30s, the 70s, and the New Deal. But then the civil rights movement, more people got brought in. But then once more people got brought in, people didn't want to put in no more because I don't want to give to them. I don't want to give to them. I only want to give to mine. So that's why stuff stopped getting spread around, because more people got involved in the spread. But that's fascism, right? Like, I only want mine to get it. America has always been fascist. The word fascism might be new, but the definition of the word fascism, America has always been that.
Whether or not a whole bunch of Zohran Mamdanis get elected all around the country. But that's my understanding as a communist of how capitalism functions until it's stopped by literally the only thing that can stop it, a workers' revolution for socialism. That might not be a popular sentiment in the US today, and it might not be something that a lot of people are organizing toward. And people may want to go on believing that things will somehow work out on their own, but I don't believe there's any reason to believe that. And the sooner that a whole lot of people realize that, the better, because I desperately want an end to this too. I just don't want to pull the wool over my own eyes about how to do it. Now, in the near future, fortunately, for the sake of snapping people out of denial about the future prospects for capitalism's stability and basic capacity to provide any kind of decent life for working people, but unfortunately, in every other sense, there are a lot of signs right now that another 2008 type financial meltdown might be around the corner, so that could get more people searching for the exits to the capitalist system. And those exits are not to be found, just trying to save everybody a lot of time, in the electoral system. For now, remember that what the capitalists told...
I disagree with that too. They could be found in the electoral system, but they're not found with the Democrats or Republicans. They're not found in the duopoly. If we can get Green Party people voted in, DSA people voted in, we're not going to take over the Democratic Party. But the Green Party wants you to come in, fill it up, and take it over. Let's do that. Let's get like, you can see how much of a movement Zohran can make or build. Donald Trump, even Donald Trump acting populist, Bernie Sanders, AOC, all the people who have the Green Party politics, the Green Party platform, build huge movements especially within the Democratic Party, but then they get kicked out. They squash the movement. Build these movements in the Green Party. We will not squash it. We will foster it. We will help it. We will feed it. We will do what, like, we need people like Zohran and Bernie to come in with these good ideas with how to get publicity and how to get eyes on us, and then people will vote for us, and you through our party, or our party through you, however you want to look at it. We could build the People's Party, the movement with the people. The Democratic Party just always kills it. We need to stop that.
Told you about communism was mostly no more true than the insane hype that they're putting out against exits are not to be found, just trying to save everybody a lot of time in the electoral system. For now, remember that what the capitalists told you about communism was mostly no more true in the insane hype that they're putting out against Mamdani. And you have the opportunity to learn about it yourself through channels like this one. If you want to get started, go to the Home tab, Socialism for All, and scroll down just a little bit to the recommended reading playlists, which will get you started. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next video.
There it is. Oh. But, yeah, so Mamdani, I like him. I hope he does what he says he's going to do. I'm going to leave a link to the video that I just watched with you guys. And, yeah, leave a like, share, subscribe, please. Leave comments. Let's talk about it. Let's see what you guys think about Zohran. And, yeah, and I'm going to go and look at some right wing and some other things. And I'll be putting out some more videos on Zohran over the next few days. And happy 4th of July, guys.